Hi everyone, let me know if you can hear me and see me. Okay. How is everyone doing? Hi Hussein, how are you? Hi Urvi. I think we're just 5 minutes late, so I think that's all right. Do like the stream, and you know the drill. The more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to people. And we also have a very interesting guest today. And wait, I'm just. Please confirm if you guys can see me or hear me. I'm slightly nervous because my place has been getting a lot of electricity issues today, but yeah. So, this is one of the Thursday reading sessions, and I'm very excited about today because we have a guest also. But he'll be here in a minute or two. But until then, we can talk about how you guys are doing. Do let me know if you guys are reading the book for the month, which is The Three Body Problem. Hi, Tosik, how are you? Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you, Hussein. Hi. Oh, so we're going to talk about a lot of books today. And before I get into the session, I wanted to recommend a book. It's called The Death and Life of Great American Cities. My sibling recommended it to me. It's basically a very optimistic view of how people can be intellectually arrogant and that in turns ruins cities. So it mocks the planning of American cities, the urban planning of the different cities. Anyway, but yes, we'll also be discussing this book at length. I just have the e-copy. Everything is out of syllabus. And wow. And we're going to talk to Varun Duggirala, who's with us today. He was also one of the first guests that I spoke with when I started doing Chalchitra Talks, so it's particularly special. Hi Varun, how are you?
Hi, I'm happy to
Hi.
be here. It's been a while since we did this, so
Yes,
excited to do this one. I've set up nice lights for this stream since I
that's
had
nice.
the light available. So I thought it'll be a fun evening to kind of chat about the book, just chat about books in general, seems to be
Yeah,
my favorite thing in recent times to talk about.
that's really nice. I wanted to ask you, like, this is one question I had ever since you
Mm.
told me that you're coming out with a book. What was the one thing that surprised you about writing a book?
Uh, the writing part is actually not the tough part. The writing part is actually honestly easy most times. What
Yeah.
is tougher is structuring the book.
Mhm.
I remember I started writing the book March last year.
Okay.
And I think sometime in June, I sat down. I'm like, okay, what am I writing? Because I had no idea how I'm structuring this. So I would sit down and I would like little try and figure out what goes after what all do I have left to write. Thankfully, figured a way to structure it. Then restructured the entire book again in September. After I had almost the entire book written out,
Yeah.
delivered the book in October. So wasn't a long writing process. I wrote it between March and October, but I must have restructured the book at least twice, if not three, four times.
Huh.
The writing part somehow came a lot more naturally because I was also practicing. I think my newsletter helps me write. So that I
Yeah.
was surprised. I thought the writing will take time. I did go through like a month where I couldn't write in May when the second wave was going on, just headspace wasn't there. But the structuring is painful. And like editing stuff out, and suddenly someone says, you know, your editor tells you to add something here or change something there. Or I realized in September I was 10,000 words short of what was the minimum. And I
Oh.
was like, oh, the book is done. Like 10,000 words more, and you have like 3 weeks to finish this. And thankfully, I finished it in 3 weeks. But yeah, structuring, because there's so much to think about, just
Yeah.
from how people are going to read it, what will they enjoy, what is going to be fun. But yeah, the writing part is actually the easy part.
Good. So, were you also referring to a lot of books and other things, podcasts, etc.?
Yeah, so I kind of went back to what kind of books I like to read. I like to read books which I learn from, and honestly, also like from. I like to read books which help me discover more books or more things to kind of
Yeah.
refer to. I've always found those to be the best kind of books where you can go through a chapter and the author will refer like two, three things, and then
Right.
because that's the things I always underline, and that's how I find books. Like I remember, like one of my favorite, and sometimes they don't come from books either. So one of my favorite authors, Adam Grant, I listened to him on a podcast and I found his book, and through his book, I discovered, I think, or one of his things I discovered Ryan Holiday, who's now one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
So it's always great because you find these connections. I think Austin Kleon talks about this, right? You kind of building your own family tree of what content you're consuming. And so I think that's the best kind. So I went through that process. So I studied how Ryan Holiday writes a lot. He also puts a lot of how he writes out there. So I've honestly followed his framework for writing this book. I did the Malcolm Gladwell course on Masterclass because I just genuinely feel how he writes is outstanding. I mean, obviously, it's something to aspire to that level of being able to do it. So I did that. I literally ran through every single interview I could find of how an Adam Grant writes, how even Scott Galloway wrote his book, just to kind of go in the other side direction. So I did a lot of that. Just process was more important for me than the actual writing, because I wanted writing to be myself. But my writing style, honestly, I think I had a moment when, so I have a Masterclass subscription. So I remember watching David Sedaris, the satirist writer. I didn't know who he was. Just popped up on Masterclass. Let's watch this. The way to use humor and the way to talk about your own life in a way that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm telling you about my life. It's my biggest worry, right? And I was like,
self-indulgent.
I never want to be someone saying, oh, I've done so much in life that you can learn from me. He had a few tricks, or rather not even tricks, like just ways in which you can talk about your life, which is more approachable for people. And I took some of those tips. I would always note these down, and I had this like I had this one notebook which has like a lot of stuff in it. But this is my workbook. I'd figure structuring, I'd figure how I want to tell a story. I made an entire like bunch of pages of just stories from my life I wanted to talk about. Didn't want anything to be a big moment. Didn't want anything to be oh my God, this is like the biggest moment in my life. Everything is tiny moments, and because I believe that tiny moments are the most fun. You get the most insight. The big stuff it's amazing, but it's the big stuff. But that was fun, like just figuring out process. I'm still doing that. I'm literally like, even Perennial Seller, which is the book I'm reading right now, is something Ryan Holiday wrote about how you can write and market books so that they sell for decades. It's again written in a very interesting way. It's not about clickbaitiness. It's about how do you make it like, almost like live a lifetime in that sense, right? So all of that stuff. So heavy consumption of books has happened especially the last 2 years.
Great. I would also like to address a few comments that are coming. Hi Sumit, how are you? Sumit has commented that he loves your podcast. And then he went again to correct it, like, I love your podcasts, not just one podcast.
3 of them now. Yeah.
I discovered you through Advertising is Dead, and I think that was one of the introductory podcasts into the world of podcasting for me. And I've ever since been a fan. But yeah. Thank you, Akash, for sending the link to Varun's copy as well. Guys, you can place your orders from the link that Akash has shared. And
if anybody wants to read the introduction for free, they just need to subscribe to my newsletter. You get the intro for free. It just comes in the welcome email. You get the entire introduction of the book for free, and also table of contents, because each I use the ad person in me to make sure that every single chapter has a title which is fun and interesting. So you get that and the introduction for free.
I got the book. I got the ebook, and I was going through the table of contents, and one particular chapter that interested me a lot was how to say no. And you said, I want to be a nice person, and I struggle with that. Like, I always want to be a nice person, and I just cannot say no.
I still can't say no. I try very hard. I think that's the whole point about the chapter, is that we all struggle because we don't want to seem like bad people. We don't want someone to feel bad. And I feel that, especially as Indians, we're very wary of saying no. I realized that anybody I talk to from the West, they're okay to say no and then go have dinner with you. Yahan you're like, oh my God, how can I like say no? The person feel bad and but that's why that's one chapter I actually thought a lot about, because I'm like, I fail at this every day. But again, that's why I refer to what people said were ways to say no. But biggest problem most people have.
I think we should have a no man, like the movie Yes Man. I mean, I don't know. I will benefit from it.
Yeah, for sure. It's so important. I think one of the best parts, and sometimes I blank out on what all I wrote in the book, but I think one of the interesting parts about no, which I remember reading about, was the fact that you know, think about the fact that by saying no, you are honestly turning to a person and giving them compromised effort. So you'll anyway not do a good job if you don't
Yeah.
really want to do it. So you always get stuck in a maybe, right? And it's like oftentimes if you come down to a maybe is a no in disguise, right? And that's
Right.
honestly, I've actually just put that on a t-shirt. I just remembered it's on a t-shirt which is coming out. Have merch, and I was like, oh, I remember. And yeah, because and that's the good way to think about it. If you're not giving someone 100% effort because you think it's a maybe in your head, then you should just tell them that and say no, because they might find somebody who will do this with 100% effort. The
Right.
problem is oftentimes we say maybe, and so we say yes, and because of that we do a substandard effort, and anyway it ends up with that person not being happy with what you've done for them. You are anyway not happy because you wanted to say no in the first place.
Right.
So just make everybody happy and just be honest about it. And people do get pissed off when you say no, but I think they respect the fact that you're being honest about why you are saying it. I think that's
Mm.
important to do. But whenever it's a maybe, oftentimes it's a no. I'm trying to, I still can't do it, but I still try.
Yeah. I also, why don't you tell us about the book first of
Yeah.
all, before we get into any further discussion?
So the book came from a simple insight. I sat down and said, what do I want to write about? And I was like, what did I want to know about when I was like 20, 21? Because I had a weird phase between the time I was 17 till almost 25, 26. Because I left home and I was from a small town, moved to Bangalore, didn't fit in, went through a lot of, I just kind of changed as a person trying to fit in, didn't do well in studies. Parents kind of figured a way to get me into engineering college, flunked through my engineering. Again, like had friends, but was genuinely feeling out of place, felt like I was not cool enough. I didn't know enough. Everything was basically a problem in my head. And finished a 4-year engineering degree over 6 years. Then did like worked as a promoter in a couple of bars. Worked in a call center. Made a lot of random choices. Somehow managed to get into media school, and
Yeah.
then eventually MTV and everything else. Right. So I was like, that guy in that phase, what would he have wanted to know? What could I have like really, what would have helped me? And I realized there are a few things which, as much as my parents taught me a bunch of things, as much as school or early college supposed to teach you something, I said, what would I have wanted to know? And it came down to like a bunch of insights. I initially, honestly, in all honesty, wrote a bunch of insights down, then figured they fit into 5 definite buckets. The 5 buckets were: we never taught how to start things, we never taught how to make choices in life, we never taught how to learn. I've learned how to learn now in the last 5 years. I don't think I knew how to learn till 5 years ago. We never taught how to build connections, how do you build friendships, how do you build relationships, how do you find a mentor and kind of connect with them. And most importantly, and this is something I've only found in the last 2 years, how do you connect with yourself? I think we don't talk to ourselves, we don't listen to ourselves. And you know, I went through all of that. So these are the 5 things which I wish I had known about, and that's what I wrote the book. The book it's multiple chapters, but they come under these 5 parts.
Yeah.
uh, it's some instances from life, some from my life, some of them bizarre, some of them are almost like, how can I explain a complicated concept by making it like a story for like toddlers? So you will find a lot of turtle and rabbit, and you will find a lot of those things in there. And there's even a twinkle twinkle little star somewhere in between. And also all the stuff which I have read, which I've learned from, which I put in there. So it's not just me giving, from stories from my life, but also like stories from other people's lives, from like everything from mental models to concepts to um, just something that can help you build your own framework or build your own, like, I think the introduction I write about the fact that life's like this instruction, life is like a microwave you got, but someone forgot to give you the instruction manual. So you're either going to burn it or you'll undercook it. It takes you a while to figure out what that right temperature is. And
Yeah.
I was hoping that this can help people write that manual for themselves. Also, I didn't want to make it a heavy read. It's an easy read. It's a fun read. And some chapters will resonate. Um, I'm hoping most will. But more than anything else, it's meant to be a fun way to look at slightly deeper things in life and not go super deep about them.
Nice. That's very interesting. I'll just, because we're also live, I'd like to address another comment. Um, so I remember I wrote down all of Rohan Joshi's recommendations from Varun's useless information and shared it with him. All
Yeah.
of that was useful information, by the way. This is Sumit again. And guys, comment down
I need to
below
bring that
what.
show back, but I have 3 podcasts. I really want to bring I might bring useless information back, but it should just be a YouTube live stream like this. I think that's the best way to do
Yeah,
it.
that will always work. I think that'll be interesting also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, do comment down what do you wish you guys knew 5 years ago. And if in case you have any questions for Varun, comment those also. And we'll address some of the comments. Yep. And so you were also talking about, connecting with yourself. And I think over the past few months, I think it has happened with me where I'm just learning how to detach myself from what is going around, especially in terms of social media, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Because I think somehow we start connecting, or we start associating our self-esteem with that. Have you managed to move past it and become your own person in that regard?
To be honest, I go through phases. I think we all go through phases where suddenly you're stuck on, okay, why is this post not getting enough likes? Or
Yeah.
why is the view count low on a video you made? Or why is this reel working and not that one?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't avoid that. What I've flipped it around and said, as much as I might want validation from other people, I'm now looking for validation from myself.
Yeah.
Like, am I happy with myself? Am I kind of listening to myself? I'm also hitting 40 this year. So in my head, I am like, I want to kind of also figure some of those things out for myself and trying to act wiser. I don't think I am wiser. I'm trying to act wiser in that sense and figure this out. But the thing is also, like, I think there's a lot of positivity on social media as well. I think we don't give that enough credit. I have conversations with people every day who write in, now it's been a lot about the book, people who bought the book, who've read it, who've written it to me. And I chat with them about some concepts. Like, someone wrote me today saying that one section was okay for them. They got it, they enjoyed it. But another one really kind of like hit them and they really got a lot of insight from it, right? So, and I have that conversation with most people. I try my best to do it. I think that's actually where I spend the most amount of time. I chat with more than half the people who write into me with a specific question. But the other stuff I just ignore. I think I've learned to ignore it. I've learned to kind of stay away from it, and I kind of stick to what I enjoy. And thankfully, if you stick to what you enjoy, the algorithms show you only that stuff, which is, I think, is perfect.
Nice.
And so that's how I manage it. And I also have time which I try to block off as much social media as possible. So late at night, early in the mornings, I will not pick up my phone. I'll read a book. I'm going back to physical books after a while, although I really like my Kindle. I've been doing that for a while. Podcasts help because there's no interruptions there as well. Audiobooks, I'm getting back into audiobooks thanks to Will Smith's audiobook. And so that's actually, I think, a good way to find something you can consume which is not screen in your face is the best way to do it. And give social media its time. But I read something very interesting yesterday, which I made me think a lot. I'm still thinking about it, saying that will decades from now people look at us and social media the same way we look at 2 decades ago people and cigarettes?
Right.
Like, almost like 2 decades ago you could smoke anywhere. It was not supposedly that wrong for everybody.
Yeah.
Now you'll know it's really bad. Will, like, even 10 years later, 1-2 generations down, turn around and say, you guys are terrible. You spent so much time on social media. It's like cigarettes. Made me think a lot. It's as addictive. You can't let it go.
Right.
So many of those things are similar. So I've been thinking about that a lot since I read it yesterday.
Nice. There's this question by Chiran Chauhan. How do you deal with the contradictions within you? I'm not sure what contradictions mean, but I'm assuming that you want to do something.
Lots.
And then...
I was on a podcast, which I don't think is out yet, but I will. And I was asked, so me and Pooja, my wife, were both on it. And she was asked, what do people not know about me? And I was like, and she said, most people don't realize Varun is supremely shy. And which is true. I am supremely shy. I'm very averse to being in the spotlight in general. It's been years of conditioning of just like, I was a very confident kid. I'm getting back to some level of confidence now. So I think we all have contradictions within us. I might seem like an extrovert to the world because I do this, I do podcasts, I do all that stuff, but I genuinely like to be by myself. I was that kid who would play with his toys in his room, not want to share. And I think it's fine to be both. We can't be the same person all the time. I think it's important to have multiple, not personalities, multiple parts of you. There might be times you might not want to do something. I used to watch a lot of content. Now I hardly watch any content apart from maybe YouTube and reading stuff. And so you can change. It's fine. Just be honest with yourself, because you can't lie to yourself. You can't tell yourself, like I can't tell myself today I'm an extrovert. I will go out. I will meet 100 people every day. My energy won't allow me to do it. At some point I will crash, or I will just like not like what's going on in my life. So just to be honest, what's really helped me though, if Chiran, right? You write a journal. Not every day. Don't put that like, oh, everyday journaling business. I have a journal. I write in it 3 times a week on average, if not twice, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. It's a conversation with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Write down, and sometimes putting it on paper is a good way for you to kind of absorb your own thoughts. It's most people worry that a journal is like a Dear Diary situation. It's most often not a Dear Diary situation. It's very third person. It's fun. That's what really helps me. It's helped me kind of figure ways to talk to myself and figure why am I being this person suddenly. So write it down, and sometimes that helps. So that's what really works for me. And it's cheaper than therapy.
Yeah, definitely. You also said you were shy, but like, how did podcasting, like, did making conversations come naturally to you then, or did you have to work on it?
So I always liked having conversations. I mean, since I was a kid, as a kid, actually, I was that kid who you walk into a train compartment and would talk to 10 people and tell everybody what happened in my house and what did my parents say. And I was that kid. Somewhere I shut down in my like late teens, 20s. But I've always been curious. So I kind of decided to give myself not a personality, but I said, what is my role in a podcast? My role in a podcast is to be a learner, which makes it easy for me. It's less pressure because I'm not going in as an expert. The only podcast where I actually feel pressure is Think Fast, because I come in with a perspective on what's happening in the business space. I feel the most pressure on that show, but it's fun because Suchita knows too much and she trolls me for it. So that's fun. But I think the best way is to say, okay, what role are you playing in this? And that's what helps ease the thing. And podcasts for me were like, it's less pressure than video for some reason, because I think the first year we didn't have cameras around, right? You sit in a studio, you talk to a person, it's recorded, don't even realize half the time the mic's around like this. And you'd get up and you'd leave. And I hate listening to my own voice. So I would not listen to it. It would be out there. I would just share it on social media. But I think that year and a half helped me become better at conversations. I also studied how to have better conversations. Like, how can you listen better? How can you come up with questions better? And when I say studied, I didn't do a course. I just listened to people who I thought were great hosts, who did good podcasts. Try to study what they kind of use as ways to guide a conversation, because you're often a navigator. You're not necessarily just talking away. So I did that. I'd make notes and so let me try this next time. Let me try this word they use to switch, like someone's talking for like a long period. How do you kind of switch them out of that and take it in a different direction? So I just spent time learning all of that. And that's why I keep doing it all the time. It becomes easier. You feel less pressure. Now I can talk into a camera without worrying half the time. Otherwise, before I would like be like this and I would like look here, I'd look up, I'd look up. I still do that, but I don't do that as much now. And so that's how I've developed that whole conversation thing. I spend time doing it. Also, people at home are happy. I have other people to talk to, because with people who know me, I talk a lot.
Wow.
Everyone's very happy Varun has more people to talk to in the household. And I think that's also been a good point for everybody here.
Nice. There's another question. I think it's Satvik. And it reminds me of this question that Tim Ferriss also asks all his guests. What is that one profound advice which has stayed with you? What's that one advice?
There's a sticker. There was a sticker. So it's been very old. We have this Godrej cupboards. It's made of metal, which all of us grew up with. My mom had a sticker on it which said, "Good things happen to nice people." It's one of those Archie's stickers. I don't know why that stuck with me for years, because I've always believed that just being nice is you cannot go wrong by just being nice. Like, when I got into the production space, and you would have a spot boy whose job was to kind of give people water or just clean the set, call him sir, call him bhaiya, there's nothing wrong in doing that. So I've always believed that being nice is not a bad thing. There's a line where you become gullible. I've fallen off that line sometimes, but I think that line's really stuck with me. I don't know who said it. I remember it was an Archie's sticker, Archie's gallery kind of sticker, but it's something which stuck with me. And the other one, which is more recent, it's kind of helped me through the pandemic. It's also changed my perspective in life. I think I've spent the last 2 years studying Stoicism a lot. It's really helped me through the last 2.5 years, really channeling a lot of this self-reflection part, which I've been doing. And one of the fundamental things in Stoicism is you talk about focusing on the things under your control at a base level, right? There's so much happening in the world around us, and everything can kind of be very overwhelming, but you can't do everything. You can't do something about everything, but you can do something about things which are under your control. So just focus on those. And sometimes just focusing on stuff under your control puts less pressure on you, makes you focus on the right things, makes you kind of happier, more peaceful. And I think that just simple fact of saying just focus on the things under your control, not as much on the stuff which isn't, has been like great for me. It's like give me like great way to process the world and kind of look at it being less anxious and more calm.
Nice. Do you also have any worst advice that was given to you? Which, in
Where
hindsight,
do I start? I have too many. I will not name people, but I have too many bad ones. I was told that I have no focus, and no, you should only focus on one thing in life. It's the one worst advice I've heard everybody, and especially people who teach in colleges give, which I'm like, guys, let people do more things. No singular focus in life. You should always have one. Was always told to me, never stuck by it. I'm very grateful I never stuck by it. What else? That one kind of sticks out for me, but I'm just trying to think of another really random one which people always told me. Someone actually told me once that because I'm an entrepreneur, I need to work 24/7. I actually believed that for years, till I realized that I don't have to, and I can still do as much. I think that hustle has a bad name because of hustle culture. There's so many good things about hustling, but we somehow take this whole 24/7 business over there. If you don't have rest, how are you going to perform properly? So you need to get your 7-8 hours of sleep. You need to be able to do all this stuff. So worst piece of advice, work 24/7. If you want to be an entrepreneur, get your sleep 7 hours at least, 6.5 maybe.
Nice. I think I'm struggling with that, where I believed in that, and then I just find it so difficult to relax now. Like if I sit down with a book, I'm just like, hey, I'm wasting my life, or hey, I'm not doing enough.
When's the last cup of coffee you drink in the day? That is something very interesting.
I
So I'm
have
asking this question.
cut out coffee from my life. I drink water. And
what is that? So Kevin, because the whole point, caffeine stays with you for 8 hours, right? So whatever you drink, even if it's tea, coffee, which has caffeine, if you drink it 8 hours, the last cup 8 hours before you go to sleep is when you get sleep well. Otherwise, the caffeine is still active in your system. So Matthew Walker, who writes about sleep science, he talks about this. And the problem with caffeine is this, that you should actually technically, if you want to sleep at 10 at night, you need to have your last cup of coffee at 2 in the afternoon. Oftentimes, you have a cup of coffee at 5, 6 in the evening, which is why you sleep at 12, 1 in the night. Right. But yeah. Then don't pick up a book. Listen to a podcast.
It's just every time I try to relax, I just start thinking about, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. But now I'm just...
Sleep meditation.
Yeah.
That's another one which really helps. I actually do that. I listen to something every night. I listen to... My recent find has been Jay Shetty is now on the Calm app, and he has this thing called the Daily J. 7 minutes every day. Let's listen to it. His voice is super calming. I mean, I don't subscribe to everything he says, but I find him genuinely interesting as a person. So I consume his content.
I will also take this moment to appreciate a comment. There's Sandeep, and he said, I just finished reading Everything is Out of Syllabus. Thank you so much for writing this, Varun. And if it is okay to ask, what is your writing routine like?
Firstly, thanks, Sandeep. I'm just looking at all the comments here as well. I'm happy you liked it. I'd love to know which part you liked most, if you want to drop that in the comments. But my writing routine was simple. I would write at 6 a.m. on most days, not every day. I didn't write every day. I would wake up at about 6ish. Between 6 and 7, my house is silent. Was not as much after schools opened. So between 6 and 7, I would write. Sometimes 6:30 to 7:30. Everybody would kind of wake up around 7:15, 7:30 because school for Leia starts at 8. So online school is easier. Just take her from this room to that room. Now you have to ship her to school. So I would write in the mornings. On a weekend, I would write in the afternoon from about 2 to 3. I don't think I ever wrote for a longer stretch than an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I would try to just write 3-4 times a week at max, at minimum, and that really helped me write. But I would go in with points. So I do this system where I actually note down what I'm going to try and cover in a chapter on a note card. So I'll write down, okay, these are the points I'm trying to tell. And then later on, I added this is what excerpts or quotes would make sense. So I use Readwise, which connects to my Kindle. So all the books I'm reading, the stuff I've highlighted is all there. So okay, I'm writing about confidence. I'll just search for confidence on Readwise, and suddenly some 5 quotes will come up. And okay, this from that book which I read it's not like I remember all of them. So it's a good way to kind of keep that. It's tougher when you have highlights on an actual book. So then I had to physically kind of remember and go through them. So I just went through that process. So I would on weekends do that. I'd find the quotes, I'd find the excerpts, figure which concept could go into which chapter, and then put them ahead. But this is after I actually put down, okay, these are the 20 stories I think are interesting from my life. These are some of the concepts and from other books which I definitely want to kind of cover. I also did a lot of A/B testing. A lot of the concepts are stuff I've spoken about on my podcast, stuff which I've spoken about on my newsletter. I looked at which of the ones that resonated the most with people. I said, okay, where could that kind of come into one of these chapters? And so it was mixing together stuff that was working on newsletter and Instagram and on my podcast, but also like stuff which I've highlighted. And over time, we're just putting the pieces together and finding a flow. Towards the end, though, I have to admit, I was very behind schedule. So in August last year, I took 2 weeks off work. And I had thankfully not taken leave through the year. So I had 2 weeks. And I would sit every day between, I think, 1:30 in the afternoon till about 5. Oftentimes I would end up writing only for an hour and a half, but I would just sit and kind of see where things flow. I just spent time. I soaked in the book for like a good 2 weeks. I think those 2 weeks were great. It's not like I went somewhere else. I was literally in the same desk, same room. Not here though. I work in the bedroom. And yeah, so that's how I wrote. It was not a traditional process, but it was fun. I just sit down and write. I just enjoy that. I've actually pulled stuff out of my journal randomly because I was like, oh wait, I wrote in a journal. This might make sense in the book. So I'd go to my journal, pull something out, a couple of paras from there, and expand on it in the book. So very like from multiple places.
I have to ask you, do you prefer reading on Kindle or paperbacks? I find making notes on paperbacks very easy, but I realize the
Yeah,
benefits of Kindle now.
yeah. I think it depends on the book. I think
Yeah.
some books you want to hold and read. I'll give you an example. I'm trying to see, there's a book here. Yeah, I won't pick up the Batman book because that will just be cheating. I have a book which is some of the best chapters, some of the best pieces from all the Batman comics in like one book.
Yeah.
But yeah, all my books have moved there. But I'm just thinking of a book which has illustrations in it, for like Austin Kleon's books, right? Great
Yeah.
example. Fabulous as physical copies. You lose 70% of the charm because it's in Kindle. You look at a book like even Scott Galway's book Algebra of Happiness, right? It's great. I read it on the Kindle and I later got the hard copy. But there's something to some books, and some books you can just read off like a Kindle. It doesn't matter. I think 50% of books you can read off a Kindle and it won't even matter to you. But some you just want to have a physical copy, so you do that. So I flutter. I also go old school on physical books where I actually highlight and then I'll tag and you'll have those things coming out of the sides. So I've started to do all of that stuff. So at least I remember where I've highlighted. But it's just convenient to have a Kindle.
It is.
I think that's the problem.
Sandeep has commented, I loved the part that dealt with how to connect with myself. Have not yet found a book that practically deals with this aspect better than everything is out of syllabus.
But if someone finds that section, I'm always happiest about that. I also snuck in a chapter there which I thought did not fit in, but thought it did. It's a chapter called "Be Like Batman," uh, which is based off a talk I gave at a marketing conference.
Yeah.
But I was like, I have to put it there. It just made sense. It didn't fit into any other section. So I actually changed a bunch of stuff about that chapter because I think Batman is so unique. There's so much to learn from him as a character. It had to be about reflection, had to be about internalizing. But I'm so happy that that section resonated. That's my favorite section in the book. My favorite chapter, though, is I think in a different section. My favorite chapter.
What's your favorite chapter?
My favorite chapter is this chapter about it's not about the journey or the destination. It's a chapter I reworked multiple times till I found the perfect way to end it, which is me talking about my daughter. And that was not supposed to be part of this chapter. It became a part of the chapter at some point of time. It also has one of the most interesting stories because when I've sat down to write down stories from my life, that story was the first story that came to mind because it's the most. You have stories which start off in a certain way and you will never expect what happens. And this is one of those. I still go back to that one. Sometimes I hope I haven't made it up in my head. I know it happened. I think I fictionalized a few things in it over the years of just telling that story again and again. But yeah, that's my favorite chapter. Yeah.
I will also read a couple of comments. Manish Pandey is in the comments. He said, I have started reading
is Manish Pandey not active on every single platform? I was on Twitter Spaces yesterday with him. There 24/7. I think Manish has the tracking of what is happening on every single platform. Manish, check what have you set up everywhere.
He's also said
he has also told me that he's finishing the book today. So I'm guessing he has.
Yeah, he's saying one of the most honest books I've come across in the recent time.
Thanks, Manish.
I'm going to sit after this stream on the book and hopefully
it shouldn't take you that long. It's about I have to start recording the audiobook. My biggest thing is that I haven't done it yet. So I was going to do it first week of Jan and I delayed it. Haven't been able to sit into it. I'm hoping I will this weekend. It's not too long, so I should be able to read it, but something just made me not do it. I might just set up a camera here and record the whole thing on video. It might be a fun thing to just have as archive.
Video audiobook. But yeah. Is Batman your favorite superhero?
I think Batman's the superhero I've enjoyed the most because I like the shades. I don't know if it's my favorite superhero. So I collect bobbleheads. Again, this is not my desk. My desk has a lot of those. Barry Levinson is the character I relate to the most. Levinson? I'm forgetting. Independence Day? No. Jeff Goldblum's character in Independence Day. I actually have a bobblehead of him. If I'm remembering his name right now, so I've blanked out on that one. Because I thought, that guy is a superhero in my head. He's this geeky science guy who figures a way to upload a virus into an alien ship while being flown into space by Will Smith. So for me, I like human superheroes. I like who don't have which is why I enjoyed Hawkeye as a series. I thought Hawkeye was fabulous to watch, so much fun. Because sometimes when you have superpowers, it feels like that's why I never liked Superman. I thought Superman is almost undefeatable. So I'm like, what's the point? Batman has nothing. He has money. Okay, so he has nothing. So I find that super exciting, and which is why I've always gravitated towards Batman in that sense. I actually like Ben Affleck also as Batman. I thought he was funny. Just had went through a terrible phase with not with Zack Snyder, but with the man who everyone thought will make it into Avengers. But I go off. A lot of my bobbleheads are that I'll find characters or scenes and I'll try to get them and put them around. And so Dwayne Johnson and Jeff Goldblum's character from Independence Day are the two bobbleheads on my desk. My two superheroes are those two.
Nice. That's nice. Manish has commented, why don't you, Varun, tell the book and a call story? Is that
So today, Manish and I were on a call.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, the book is supposed to be delivered today." I'm like, "Oh, I hope you get it soon. I'd love to hear what you think." We're on the call, it gets delivered. So in the call, there is this package that is handed to him, and Manish is holding it like this. We actually took a photograph together. I shared it online, where he's like, imagine this, like you having a call and talking to a person about the book, and he's like, I'm waiting for it to come, and it just comes exactly then. I was saying that Amazon delivery just timed it perfectly for our meeting.
Nice. There's also Mitesh has commented your voice is perfect for audiobooks. So I think there are a
Trying to
lot of
be a good
people.
podcast. So this is my Valentine's Day gift, which I got, which is a mic.
Nice.
And I've that's one more. My oldest one is there. The Yeti is still surviving,
Yeah.
but I have 3 mics. I have 2 before this one came in. This is a gift, so I'm just
Nice.
using it. But yeah, it gives me a nice podcasty voice and can kind of go in place and stuff
That's
like that.
interesting. Nice. So, and what
David Levinson. Thank you so much, Sandeep Rao.
Sandeep, yeah.
I call him Barry Levinson. See, this is what happens. You get old and you forget names of your superheroes. Thank you, Sandeep.
But what are you reading right now?
I'm reading 2 books. One is the one called Perennial Seller, which Ryan
Yeah.
Holiday wrote, which is about writing books that last a lifetime. The other book, actually, I just finished a book. It's called. One second, let me open it up. I'll in case I forget it. It's called 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman. It basically talks about time management in an opposite sense, where he says, on an average, every human being has only 4,000 weeks to live. Feels like so little, right? So 4,000 weeks doesn't feel like much. And he talks about the fact that we try so hard to manage time, right? And our way of managing time is fit in as much as possible into every single day. Whereas if you have only 4,000 weeks, you should think about every moment, say, what am I spending it on? Right? Not everything has to be fit in, not everything has to be done by you. So he goes the opposite way. Something so beautiful about it, because he talks about just enjoying a moment, about the fact that he talks to someone older, they're not remembering all the, all these hardcore achievements, but they remember the smaller things. I think one of my favorite parts of the book is when he talks about this this simple point, which is to basically say that, I'm trying to put it in the right sense. He says that oftentimes we spend time doing things which you think are cool, and we give up on the things that we really want to do because everyone's doing something that seems cool, seems relevant, so we'll do all of that. But we don't end up spending enough time doing the stuff which you really want to spend time on. And eventually, by the time we realize that we wasted all that time on like short-term validation, but as you get older, you realize, oh my God, I wish I'd like spent time doing this. I think that's so beautiful, right? Because we spent, like we mentioned social media. How much time do we spend on social media, which you think, I could have read a book, I could have spent time with a friend. I've just sat and scrolled through something for so many hours. So it's a beautiful book. So if anybody's struggling with managing time and feeling over too much pressure from productivity, just read this book. It's like it's life changing, just in terms of perspective. He's written a bunch of books actually in this space. I haven't read it. This is the first book of his that I found, but it's beautiful. It's a great read. It's not too deep. But it kind of hits you in the right places.
Nice. Do you also read any fiction, or is it mostly non-fiction that you pick up?
Lately, it's been a lot more non-fiction. I don't remember the last fiction book I read. I think the last fiction book I read was a terrible book by Dan Brown, which is, I think, a series now you can get on Woot. I think was it Inferno? Or not Inferno. The most recent one. It's a series that I think one season's out on Woot. Because I was doing his course on writing, and that was the book.
Is this course on writing actually good? Because I've seen that course many times, and I have considered.
It's a decent one for you to get how to write fiction. He talks about how you can get, because his books also have a lot of facts and a lot of actual real world information. Right. So that part is very interesting, but how you can take reference from there, but how to still build a character. I would say if you want to write a story more than a book, even it doesn't matter book. Shonda Rhimes' course is fabulous. Aaron Sorkin's one is a little deeper, but I like the Shonda Rhimes one because she just gives you more techniques to kind of use. I've done the Malcolm Gladwell one, which is which is fabulous from a non-fiction perspective. But Dan Brown's is decent. It's David Baldacci is terrible, the masterclass. But I like the Dan Brown one. It's fun. It gives you like a way to kind of add real life into this. But that's like what I like to write and read. Yeah. Did I do any other writing courses? I do too many writing courses. But
nice.
mostly non-fiction.
Are there any that you would recommend to people who?
David Sedaris on Masterclass or Malcolm Gladwell on Masterclass. Both of those, like, so much to learn from. If you want something for free, Ryan Holiday puts up a bunch of videos on his YouTube channel on how he writes, how he reads, and how he structured his book. I learned how to structure my book by watching his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So I did that. That structuring came from him. He goes hardcore. Like, I have this paper I've just cut into 2 pieces. He actually prints out cards, and he has a system where he actually catalogs them into this big plastic box and then writes basis that. So it's very hardcore. He's spoken about that system on his YouTube channel. That's where I learned how to structure a book this way. And so yeah, that's for free. It's out there. He puts it on. It's on the Daily Stoic, which is his YouTube channel. So just check it on that. Best way to kind of like stop. It's almost flawless in terms of just like how you can put a piece together.
Yeah. You've also gotten that green diary, right? Can you give us a small sneak peek into it, or however you want to take this?
So some parts are random. So let me just do this first. So how I started off the book. The book started off with me basically writing a scribble board of all the scenes, all the stories from my life, which I thought I will. So it was literally this, like, some of them never made it. One was about a tiled roof, which I never put down. There's a story about how I found my love for fitness, and that was because of my daughter. So that's here. A lot of stories, actually. There's a story which actually now shows up, I think, in the last chapter, which is initially the opening of the book, which got moved later, about Kerala, pizza, a modeling contest, and a sunset. But it's not what you think the story is about.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's a lot of that. There are actually a bunch of stories from my time at Glitch which never made it to the book, because as I wrote it, I realized that I wanted to write more about life, and somehow that phase has so many more elements to explain. So there are very few stories from my time at Glitch, which might be for the next book. In that sense, I already have an idea for a book. Second book. I'm just working on the
lovely.
framework.
That was going to be my next question.
No, I've already have like. I started the title. Everything is out of syllabus was the first title idea, and that's what got me the book deal. Second title is ready. I'm pitching it to publishers hopefully next month, because I want to write at least a book every 2 years, if not a book a year. But a book a year might be a bit much. So yeah, again, I put on topics. I had my titles written down. A lot of the title names ended up as titles of the book. Some of them didn't. But the one which has stayed throughout, which is actually my favorite title from all of it, is When in Doubt, Start with What You Love. Yeah. It's something which kept coming back to me. It came out naturally as a title because I genuinely feel that if you go back to things you really enjoy, it's great. But I will not. But beyond that, just like it's random. Like I actually have, and this is the most bizarre thing. Authors, I don't know if any author does this. I actually have a calculation here of how many words each chapter has. Nice. Because they say a book has to be 40,000 words or over. I barely scraped through. I'm like 45,000 or something like that. And I was like, okay, I calculate. Like, I don't want to write a book that's too fat. I didn't realize 40,000 with this patla also. I would have maybe written a few more chapters. So I actually calculated. I would write down, so okay, this chapter is only 700 words. Can't be 700, needs to be 1,500. So what more can I add into it? Sometimes I've actually taken 2 chapters, clubbed them together and made them a bigger chapter. So I went very non-traditional, I would say. I didn't do that. Then I started breaking down at some point. I took each chapter and I broke it down into these cards. And why these cards helped is basically because I would write down what's the story, what are the topics I've covered in each chapter, On the side over here, I would have what quotes have I taken from who have I taken quotes from, what books have I referenced was a subcategory. So it would be these three things. So I would sit here in this room late at night and just spread all of them on the floor, and I would say, okay, have I quoted someone too many times? Have I spoken about a concept twice? What should flow after what? So that's why the structuring was interesting for me, because at some point you want a book to flow a certain way, and I was like, is this the best story to start with, or maybe should that come in the end, or just if from a reader perspective, it's almost like saying retention rate, right? On podcast with YouTube, you're like,
Yeah.
if you don't let the person, if you don't hook the person in the first chapter, first couple of pages, why will they read that great chapter which is like 100 pages down? But you can't keep everything good in front, so you have to have a flow. So I spent a lot of time on that. I literally, like, this floor was once filled with like so many cards like this, all of these which are now nicely pinned and kept, were all around the place. And then once in a while you would put chapters together and realize, oh no, I used quotes from the same person from two of his books in back-to-back chapters. I'm like, I need to move quotes around, I need to find a new quote, which still makes as much sense. Some of them I left because it just fit in perfectly. So I spent time doing that. So nights I can't write, I've realized. I get very tired to write. Fresher is afternoon or mornings. Malcolm Gladwell, great story about how he writes. There was an interview where Ryan Holiday spoke to Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about the fact that he actually runs in the afternoon. So he writes in the morning, finishes writing, then he goes for a run. And that clears his mind out. And then he comes back and he preps in some way for what he's going to do tomorrow, which I think is fabulous. There was another one where Tarantino went on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is actually, I've written about that in the book. And you'd assume a Tarantino would drink all night and write all night and wake up late in the morning, right? And he said that that's how he used to write all the time. He would wake up in a bar in the morning because he was writing there. Then he decided to switch his life around, build a slightly better structure. So now he wakes up at like about 9-10 in the morning, starts writing post lunch, writes till evening, then gets into the pool and just kind of reads through what he's written and plans what he's going to do next day, and then goes out for dinner and comes back and sleeps early. And he talks about how you can structure your life basis your energy patterns. I actually use that in a chapter where I talk about how, and this is a concept I've spoken about a lot of times. It's really helped me. It's called ego depletion. Ego depletion is basically the fact that our mind is like a battery. And basically when you wake up in the morning, it has the most juice because it's got charge. But as the day goes by, your charge goes down. And so because of that charge going down, you make your worst decisions at night. You'll order that pizza, you will have that extra drink. You'll do none of those things in the morning, right? You'll slightly more sane in the morning, or more control, because the part of your brain which helps you have control has the most juice in the morning. So what this concept says is that it doesn't mean everybody has to sleep early and wake up early. It's that in your day, give yourself small breaks where you're not looking at a screen, when you're basically not doing anything which requires your mind to have control, which is why people say be bored, just lie down or just go for a walk or any of those things. Wash dishes, best thing. Lockdown was amazing for my mind to kind of be free, because wash dishes, your mind is like free, not doing any of these things. And that helps your mind kind of recharge. So you do short dose of 10-15 minutes of just like recharging your mind, and suddenly your brain has energy. So I think that concept was great, where Tarantino kind of flipped it around, saying evenings I'm easy, I'm in the pool, and if Tarantino can do it, why can't we? Is my question. Because I'm sure he's been drinking for years at night.
Yeah, this is my biggest takeaway: be bored.
Yeah. Boredom is the most interesting thing. I do this with my daughter. It's in a chapter, and she enjoys it, because I sometimes realize that things which made me build my imagination as a kid, which are somewhere lost in between, I've found again, is that you need to look at normal things and imagine stuff around. As a kid, I would look at the tiled roof of our house, and I would say, okay, that's a mountain, go on top of it. And I've almost fallen off the roof many times. And with her, we both lie down and we'll look at the fan. We don't do that as much anymore. We used to do that for quite some time. And I say, just imagine what this fan is. And we come up with stories. Like, oh, it's like something going around, it's like a train, it's a plane. So it's fun because it's not boring. You're still thinking of stuff, but you're using your imagination.
Right.
Or sometimes just lie down and you just like, I remember my most boring classes, I would imagine sometimes my professor in a diaper. Right. It's a lot of fun. In class, imagine professor in diaper. Suddenly the class is supremely entertaining, even though how boring that subject is.
Right.
So there's something beautiful about boredom, which we've lost because we pick up our phones.
Yeah.
But just put that phone aside. Sometimes just like spend time getting bored. It's a lot of fun. My dogs seem to enjoy being bored all the time. They're super happy.
Yeah. I think my father used to do this with me. We were posted in a remote village in Himachal for quite some time.
Mm.
And I was 6 or 7, and we would just look at the clouds and figure out shapes. And I think most of the people have done that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's that's why people say spend time in nature. I think they say that also because you kind of just you're not, there's no specific thing you focus on, and maybe that's why people run. So do something monotonous, like running is just a cyclical motion. I go back to dishes, so that's oftentimes a good way to do it. There is just sit around, just look out. I sometimes just sit and just look out at night or early in the morning, and I'm just it's nice. It's just like you're not thinking, you're letting your mind flow how it flows,
Yeah.
and just don't pick up that phone. I fail a lot of times, still pick it up. A notification comes and suddenly you're down. Like half an hour later, like, oh my god, why am I watching random videos in the explore section of Instagram? But yeah,
Right.
I
Have you
try.
also been watching stuff these days?
I just started watching Book of Boba Fett, which I hadn't sat down
Yeah.
to watch yet. I'm enjoying it. I enjoy everything Star Wars. So I'm like bad person to ask that question. What else have I watched which I really enjoyed? I was very late to the Drive to Survive party. I used to be a huge Formula One fan, and I
Yeah.
stopped watching because I got bored sometime. I would say many years ago. I binge watched all seasons of that. I've really enjoyed it. I think of what else I've watched recently that I really liked. I watch a lot of YouTube though. I think my problem is I think I've watched a lot more YouTube. There's a creator called Nathaniel Drew whose content I've just gravitated towards in the last many months. And so very interesting creator, how started off with trying to find him like his own self-development, but now has fallen out of love with in every form of self-help. So I've almost seen his journey as a person just evolve. Like he moved out of America and moved to Paris to live there, and the
Yeah.
pandemic hit, and he continued to create content over time. Suddenly this guy is coming to a new country and he's in a house in a country where he just moved to. So
Right.
that was fascinating to watch as well. I watched Shark Tank. Everybody watches Shark Tank. I watched
Yeah.
Shark Tank. A lot of fun. I know Aman. I've known him for years, so I was happy to see him on it. What else have I watched? I think I watched more movies though than I watched series.
Oh.
Um, I I really loved Don't Look Up.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, the Adam McKay one. I just like that last part just kind of hits you like a gut punch. This
Oh.
is one line DiCaprio says, saying, "We really did have everything, didn't we?" Something of that line. I butchered that line, but I thought that was fabulous. I really enjoyed 83 in theaters. I was sad it didn't do as well as it should have. I really enjoyed it in theaters. I also watched really trashy movies, twice, thrice. So I have seen uh, uh, Red Notice twice. It's brainless. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot. How can you not like
Yeah.
watch it twice? I have seen Zack Snyder's Justice League like twice at least. The long version, his cut. Recently, I've also spent time watching. I saw Pushpa, which I enjoyed.
Oh.
Some parts, uh, random guiltiness comes in, but I'm from Andhra, so I get that part. I somehow watched Ala Vaikuntapuramlo, which is another Telugu movie by Allu Arjun, at least 15 times over the last 2 years. It's my go-to movie when I'm bored. I'm like, I don't want to find something new. Let me just watch that again. Yeah, so I've watched a lot of movies, I would say, more than a series,
Yeah.
and haven't really stuck to a series for too long.
Right. I
That
think
way.
series are a lot of commitment.
Yeah, and I just pick up a book or I listen to a podcast instead. I think the
Right.
2 hours of a podcast is far more engaging for me nowadays, than to kind of commit myself to a series. Unless I saw Hawkeye, I loved it.
Yeah.
So some of those I watch. I'll watch the Marvel, DC, Star Wars ones for sure.
Right.
The others take a little bit more for me to commit to them, and or I'll watch a one-off one. Like I watch Masterclass like it's a streaming platform. I don't do any of the workbook, none of that stuff. I think I've watched the entire Masterclass
Yeah.
app because I have all access, and I think that's great content. Just kind of binge watch.
And what are the top 3 podcast recommendations you try to give, like in your life right now? What are the top 3 podcasts that you're enjoying the most?
I'd really recommend a show called the Rich Roll podcast.
Okay.
Rich Roll, one of the most interesting stories and super inspiring, was he's a recovered alcoholic. He in his 20s was one of the guys who they thought would end up being in the Olympic team for the US in swimming, and he joins college, finds alcohol, goes down a slope, eventually goes obviously never becomes a swimmer in that sense, but goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, lets go of alcohol, but turns to food instead,
Okay.
and unhealthy eating and stuff like that. The book actually isn't about that as much as it is about what happens when he turns 40. When he turns 40, he has trouble climbing the stairs, and he decides to make a change in his life. By 41, 42, he runs his first ultra marathon, which is the running, cycling, and swimming one. By the time he's 42, he does 5 ultra marathons back to back over 7 days. And his book is about that. He runs a podcast called the Rich Roll Podcast, where he talks to everyone from athletes to people from science, from everywhere else. Obviously, a lot more about plant protein because he's a full plant protein advocate. But just the way he speaks to them, and there's so many insights about life from his, and just generally like how you can pull from performance and from mindset from all forms of people. I learned so much from his show. And I listen to Ryan Holiday's show quite often, the Daily Stoic, something every day coming in from there. I should not be. I'm going to be the millionth person recommending Amit Verma's podcast, but although some episodes I can't go through fully, some episodes I do, in all honesty. But I'm thinking of which one I've actually found recently, which I really like. And as always, I will cheat and I will go to my Spotify or Apple Podcasts and see which ones I am listening to in recent times. But also because I listen to too many shows often enough. What have I found which is fun? I started listening to Song Exploder again. Song Exploder is if anybody hasn't heard it, Rishikesh Hirve, the host, speaks to artists about a song which they've kind of made in the past, and he works through every single level of that track being made, so he gets access to all the samples, so you'll hear the most raw version of every single part of the track and you see it coming together. It's also a show on Netflix. They've converted that podcast into a show that's great to kind of listen into. And there's one which is actually that it's interesting because it's called Meditative Story. And so imagine some of the world's most interesting people, it can be celebrities, can be entrepreneurs, etc. They're talking about a story in their life, but the sound design on the podcast is meditative music. So it's an experience. You're listening to it and it's an overall experience of just generally amazing stories from individuals, but it's just like the experience is amazing. It's called Meditative Story. And non-podcast recommendation, but audio, Will Smith's audiobook. Oh my God. I've not heard a better audiobook in my life because he has performed that book. He has done voices, he has rapped, he has sung, there is music in it. It's one of my favorite books in recent times. It's just so honest and so interestingly self-deprecating. Like he puts himself down a lot. He speaks about all the things that are wrong about him, right? I mean, you would expect a Will Smith book where it's Will Smith. It's supposed to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually very humanizing. You look at him in a much more like normal person perspective at the end of this book. So I would definitely say, if you want to invest in an audiobook, the book's supremely fat. Like, books like, I think my book is this thin, his book is like here somewhere. It's that broad. So I would just say that the audiobook, it's fabulous. It's I mean, it's an experience to itself.
Nice. I mean, I do not remember, but somebody else also recommended us this book, and I think we'll pick it up for a book a month thing on Chalchitra Talks as well. I mean, hopefully everyone will like it.
Yeah.
Are there also any other books that you've been reading that you'd like to
I read a lot
recommend?
of, I mean, I primarily read nonfiction.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Storyteller, which is Dave Grohl's memoir. It's great because I used to read a lot of rock. I think we all go through a phase where you read rock biographies. And generally the story is this, that this person has had a bad childhood. They've found fame, but also lots of drugs and alcohol and sex and everything else. And eventually it goes sideways and they find some form of this thing. Dave Grohl's one is not like that. Like, he's had a lot of fun in his life. He's obviously had tragedy with obviously Kurt Cobain passing away, but he never did drugs beyond like basic limits for a rock star. He speaks about his daughter and being a father. He speaks about random stuff where he fell off a stage and still went on stage to perform while a guy is putting a cast on his leg. So it's really funny and it's really like heartfelt. Like, one of my most interesting, I mean, spoiler alert, if anybody's like going to slap me for this, there's a moment where Paul McCartney comes to his house for dinner and he says that you only realize how many Beatles memorabilia you have in your house is when an actual Beatle is coming to your house and you want to put them away. And then Paul McCartney and his wife come to his house and he walks up and he comes back down. There's a piano in his house. And before Paul McCartney goes, he sits on the piano and starts playing on it. And his daughter goes, Dave Grohl's daughter goes and sits next to him. And Paul McCartney is teaching his daughter how to play the piano. Yeah. And he's like, I looked at that moment and I said, this is what my life is. This is the amazingness of my life, that Paul McCartney is in my house teaching my daughter how to play the piano. I have goosebumps now thinking about it. And at that moment when he's writing it, you can make out he's a fan. He's not Dave Grohl, the rock star. He's a fan. I think that's the beauty. Like, in this entire book, every time he meets someone, you can realize he's fanboying. He's fanboying about most artists he meets when he's writing about them. But I think it's simple, but it's beautiful as a book. The other one I really enjoyed, on a very different tangent, is a book called Humor Seriously. I've always wanted to, like, one of my things I want to do in life, my biggest fear is to be on stage and trying to stand up. Because I'm worried nobody will laugh.
Right? I think you actually tried doing stand-up, right?
I was going to, but it didn't happen because pandemic hit. But I was going to try and do that. That was the idea.
Is it still like?
It's still, I still want to do it. I don't know when I will, but that's one of those things. Like, in life, you got to do this. Like, write a book, done. No, that's scratched off. Do stand-up has not happened yet. Okay. But this book is basically both the authors teach a course on humor in a business school. I think in Yale or Harvard, one of them, if I remember right. And this entire book is about how you can use humor in your day-to-day life. And the simple fact that we all assume that humor means you have to be funny, but humor doesn't mean you have to be funny. It's a great way to figure out what your humor persona is, because there are 4 personas which you can kind of take on. Sometimes you're a mix of 2 of them at least. And how do you kind of build that? How do you realize what is your humor style? How can you kind of bring humor into your life? It's super funny. Like, they're really funny. They co-wrote it, and it's almost like it's almost like a squabble happening in a book, but you're entertained by it. But also it teaches you so much about how to try to be like your kind of funny, and not like, oh, somebody's funny like this, I want to be like that. Like I can't do what Tanmay does, I can't do what Rohan does, but I can do what is innately me. And it's a lot of fun. But it's also, the good part is it's for professionals. It's for someone in a professional environment, because they're like, all workplaces are so boring, they're not fun. So how do you bring more humor into the workplace? So it's a great book to read. It's there's so much to learn. I'm actually reading it the second time right now. I'm making a bunch of notes.
Nice. What was the name of the book again? I'm so sorry.
Humor Seriously.
Oh, Humor Seriously. Nice. That's sweet. And before we wrap up this discussion, Varun, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Something I might have missed?
No, I just what else do I have?
I also heard that your merchandise is dropping soon.
Yes, my merch is dropping soon. Do you remember? Merch is dropping soon. I should be announced over this weekend. I basically, the simple idea was, can I take lines from the book? And also, my book has a lot of random, I call them bizarre drawings that I do, which has been in my newsletter for years.
Yeah.
Penguin said, that sounds fun. Why don't you do it in the book? And I'm like, are you serious? You want to actually print these?
It was actually really nice. It was very refreshing to see those drawings in the book.
And half of them are like, I've scribbled them on the iPad. So like some things are half cut off because they didn't fit in right. And I wanted it to be raw like that. But so we took some of those, but largely we took lines from the book, and we took some stuff I've drawn. So we've done t-shirts, we've done hoodies, we've done a bag, which is called the bag of useless information, which is, I mean, that bag is something which I want to carry around. It's much fun.
Yeah.
We've done stickers, we've done a mug, just stuff that people might want, and stuff which I can kind of give away, because I am planning to like try and do a bunch of giveaways over the next at least couple of months. I'm just planning a bunch of fun things around that as well. And so merch is coming out, but more than that, I'm excited to record the audiobook. I'm trying to see how I can make it not just me reading the book. Like I'm reading my book again to see, can I make short notes on the side so I can actually say them, so you get something extra if you listen to the audiobook versus just reading it. So that's what I've been trying to do. But yeah, apart from that, nothing much. Might do a lot more YouTube this year, if that's what's coming.
That would be so nice. There was a comment that I hadn't acknowledged, but somebody was really looking forward to your streams.
My streams?
Yeah, I think you were planning to stream. You just
Yes,
said
I really want to do streams. The problem is I'm doing too many things. I often have to sit down and say, what am I like? Do I have the time to do this? And generally streams work really well at this time at night. And by 9 o'clock to 9:30, I have generally switched off from the world. This is fun to do. If a stream I can do it like this, like Aram said, then I think I've been on too many hyper streams. So I'm like, oh, I can't be hyper at 9:30 in the night, and I won't be able to sleep till 12. But this is chill. I could do this on maybe. Is Manish still here? Manish, are we doing this? Manish often gives me advice on the things which I should do. I actually saw one thing. I saw Sandeep wrote, what computer does Varun write on? I actually wrote a large part of the book on an iPad, because I found it convenient to carry it around. I just have a keyboard and sit somewhere and just write on it. But yeah, not on physical paper. I couldn't do that. On an iPad or sometimes on laptop, I used an app called IA Writer. It's nice. It's actually nice to write on, because once you're done with the line or a chapter, it basically only the line you're writing is more visible. Everything else kind of gets a little more blurred out. So your entire screen is just what you're writing at that moment. Everything else is there, but it's like slightly more faded out in color. It's a great way to do focused writing because you're not distracted by other things. And D&D mode always on.
Right. But thank you so much for doing this, Varun.
Thanks, man. This is fabulous. A lot of fun.
Guys, if you want to check out the book, it's in the description. We've added it to the description as well, so check it out. And Sandeep has commented that hopefully Varun comes back to Chalchitra.
I'll come back. I know that last time I couldn't do it, but you tell me. We still have to do the quiz as well.
Yes,
I'm on for that.
I will ping you again for the quiz.
Yes, I'm on for that, and I love to do this. Call me to talk about books and all these other things. I'm always happy, and Sandeep's had a lot of good questions here. Sandeep, you got to DM me. I might just send you a book which is signed, just like putting it out.
That'll be so nice. But thank you, Varun, for doing this, and I hope you enjoyed as well. And thank you guys for joining in, and I will